We are Zach and Jody Gray, and we are now going to demonstrate how you can get the exposure in your camera by using the ExpoDisc.
Yeah, and we highly recommend that you watch all 5 of the different videos that we've produced for you guys, because that's going to give you a great overview and show you how to use the ExpoDisc in every single lighting situation. So definitely check out all those videos to get the best use out of this product. So exposure can be a tricky thing, and the reason that sometimes when we're, especially us wedding photographers and portrait photographers, we're running around, we're shooting in all these different lighting situations, the reason our camera sometimes struggles a little bit with that, especially when it's on any kind of auto mode, is because the camera uses a reflective light meter. It's looking at whatever light is bouncing off of, and it's reading that instead of reading the actual light like a handheld light meter does. So the problem with that is, remember, the camera is designed to try to look and see everything as 18% gray. It's trying to turn everything it sees 18% gray, and if you give it 18% gray, as we talked about in the other videos, it knows what color everything should be in the image. So if you're shooting a white bride in a white dress and the camera sees that, the in-camera meter, since it's looking at that light reflecting off, goes, whoa, that's not 18% gray, it's too bright, and what happens? It shoots a dark photo for you. Same thing if you're shooting a dark groom in a dark tux in a dark room against a dark wall. It sees all that dark and it goes, that's not 18% gray. So then it shoots a really bright photo. So the problem is sometimes you'll get dark shots, sometimes they'll be correct, sometimes they'll be too bright, and it's all over the place. So we can use the ExpoDisc to give it the perfect amount of light transmission so we get a perfect exposure every time.
So that's why we love shooting on manual instead of some sort of auto exposure, because once again, it's a pain in the rear end and the back end when we're going from image to image trying to adjust our exposure. This is how we get our exposure with the ExpoDisc.
So we're going to bring our amazing model once again, Meredith, over. She's going to hand me my awesome camera. Check it out. Canon, what's up? So step number 1, like we mentioned, we need our exposures to be consistent. So anytime the lighting isn't shifting and changing really fast, we are on manual setting, because that's going to give us the consistency that's going to make post-production fly. So first we set our camera to manual, which my camera is set to right now. Step number 2 is I'm going to stand in the position right where my subject is going to be photographed. So I'm going to be shooting from that camera's perspective back this way. So, and Meredith, who's going to be photographed, is going to be standing here. So I'm going to point my camera back towards my camera shooting position, so the light falling through my lens is the same light that's going to be hitting her face. Then, step 3, I'm going to set my ISO, my aperture, and my shutter speed to the settings I want to get a good, to shoot the way I want to shoot, and making sure that my in-camera meter reads 0. So when your in-camera meter reads 0, you know you've got a perfect exposure, because you're transmitting 18% gray light through here, and that's what the camera is trying to set its exposure to, is 18% gray. So I simply snap a photo. I'm of course going to check the back of my camera to make sure on my histogram that I've got a line right down the center. Once I have that, I know I have a perfect exposure. Then I can simply, at that point, if you've watched the other videos, you can set your custom white balance right then and there. So now you've got your exposure and your color. Oh my gosh, this is turning out amazing. Now I can step over to my shooting position, fire back, and get rock star photos of Meredith. So here we go. So one thing that we do want to point out as well, as you're shooting, you've got your perfect exposure set, it's on manual, your images are going to come out perfect as long as that histogram's right down the middle. When you jump back into your shooting position and point the camera back in this direction, your in-camera meter may jump around and go bright or dark depending on the background or what the camera's reading. Don't worry about that. You know you've got a perfect exposure set, even if that in-camera meter's jumping around. And when it does start jumping around, that just goes to show you how inaccurate that in-camera meter is, and why using this system is going to give you much, much better results.